condolences and sympathies to the families and the victims, especially the ones involving our children. This is some challenging times. It's even more challenging when we hear incidents of what we heard over the weekend involving some of our younger ones being caught into this unfortunate circumstances of violence that I find absolutely unacceptable on all levels. So over the weekend, we experienced 19 non-fatal shooting victims, 3 homicide victims, 4 juvenile victims, 5 female victims, and 4 individuals who have been arrested, a total of 20 incidents. And incorporating within that particular number, we had a late report incident that what happened over on Thursday that was reported on Friday. Obviously, this is unacceptable. These acts of senseless violence within our city has to come to a stop. We're asking the public to assist us in this effort because no one entity, no one person is responsible alone when it comes to public safety. Just a recap of some of the incidents that we have dealt with over the weekend. We know that a 13-year-old girl was murdered, a 10-year-old girl and an 18-year-old male was shot during the incident. We're still working on what is the motive. We understand there are some leads. Unfortunately, at this time, the leads are still being interviewed and worked on in regards to getting to the bottom of it, even though we know that within that respective neighborhood has been challenged with a number of different incidents in regards to shots fired. We also had a situation where a woman was involved in a domestic dispute with her boyfriend, where she had called her father to a location. And during this incident, the boyfriend who the woman was arguing with was shot. And this is a known suspect. The narrative in that, it's not just young kids. It's not just young ones out there that's involved in these unfortunate incidents. We have individuals of all ages involved in using firearms to resolve their disagreements. We also have situations where individuals are handling firearms in a negligent manner. We had a situation where an individual had a firearm and while he's manipulating it, shot an individual next to him. Again, the common denominator, firearms. This is unacceptable. We have domestic violence situations going horribly wrong where during an argument, the live-in boyfriend shot and killed his live-in girlfriend. So what are we doing about it? I know there's always a question in regards to how MPD is addressing this. We understand our lift. We understand that it is important for us to be at the forefront, not in the back. But I will still say this, and I'm glad to have Director Hallman here, because it's always important that I do not want to investigate one incident because something happened. We have to be in front of it from a prevention. We have to be in front of it in regards to how do we redirect the particular conflict that we're seeing in the neighborhoods. But I've added additional officers and detectives to the Homicide and Violent Crimes Unit. We have a public safety review, a holistic approach in regards to looking at those who are involved in violence, but also other disturbing behaviors such as reckless driving, where we are working with our partners. Again, I say that with the emphasis, working with our partners to address these issues. We talk about in regards to those who are not only using violence, but also recipient of violence, because we understand that it is on both ends of the spectrum there. We also have discussions with our partners, the FBI task force, the ATF, in regards to those who are straw purchasing, those who are attempting to buy firearms, but they're prohibited from having those firearms, because we go out and talk to them, because we want them to understand that MPD is watching. We're not just sitting on the sidelines. We also work in regards to, again, with our partners for the violence prevention, because we understand that they need the data, they need the information of where our hotspots are, where our challenges are, so that they can help assist in hopefully redirecting or giving other tools to our community. This morning I talked with to the Mayor Johnson, my bad, in regards to how we can work more with our partnerships. Understand that the mayor's office does have a public safety plan that we are aligned with. In fact, working on what's going to be the messaging and what's working with our partners. But as I said before, we cannot reduce this alone. We need the public. We need the assistance of those who see those carrying firearms to intervene. We need those who can step up and be that voice of reasoning, because we're seeing violence where it should not be at in our public. And I know it's always a trust issue that we have in here and talking about with the Milwaukee Police Department, our residents. We have so many different platforms to have you work with us. Whether you want to address us by calling our non-emergency line or call the Criminal Investigation Bureau at 935-7360, or utilizing the platform Crime Stoppers, where we have the app, P3 Tips app, or the phone number 414-224-TIPS. These are anonymous ways to be able to reach out to, again, be proactive for your own community. But again, I say this, help us help you. Let us be part of a collaboration and be able to have this impact for our public safety. At this time, I'd like to allow Director Holloman to come up and speak in regards to our concerted efforts for our community.
Thank you, Chief Norman. On behalf of the City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention, we also offer our deepest condolences and sympathies to the families who've lost loved ones as a result of senseless gun violence. We definitely work with the community and with our partners to make sure that we are addressing prevention, primary prevention, because that's an extremely important piece of this. The chief already mentioned the need to address the access to guns, and so we need policymakers to step up in a greater way in terms of who has access and what they have access to. There are so many layers to reducing risk and increasing protective factors that the Office of Violence Prevention is working on with our both system and community partners. And so when we talk about that this is a all hands on deck approach, this doesn't just mean systems or government, it means community organizations, it means community members. It means that we have to change the community perception, the community narrative, and the community norm about violence and what happens, what's considered okay when it comes to responding to conflict. And if someone is calling for a friend or a family member for assistance, so who is the best person to call that won't then add additional violence or escalate the conflict? If folks need to reach out to the 414 Life team, the phone number is 414-439-5525. If you know that conflict is brewing, there is potential for gun violence, please call the 414 Life team at 414-439-5525. They will help with mediating that conflict to prevent gun violence. And then as community, again, partners and organizations in the community, we are continuing our work together. There will be more information released soon. And we just, again, thank you to every person that has done something, that has said something, that has called the tip line, that has called Crime Stoppers. Thank you to every person who has spoken to a family member, a loved one, a neighbor, a coworker, and talked to them about ways to calm down, to de-escalate. But we need more people stepping up to do the same. And so we can't be at every place at one time. We cannot fund everything in the community. However, if each person in the community is taking their rightful place in keeping our community safe, that is where we're going to see the largest, the biggest, and most sustainable impact. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions now. Starting, Hillary, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon.
Regarding the 13-year-old killed, do you believe someone in that crowd was targeted, but that wasn't these children?
So, to my understanding right now, we do not believe the children are being targeted. In fact, I would hate to see what can a 13-year-old or 10-year-old do to anyone to cause a violent reaction. We do have a couple of leads in regards to individuals who may be involved. Like I said, there's some challenging issues that happen in that particular neighborhood. But the big thing is, again, we're information driven. And I know that there were some challenges in regards to some very high emotions running at the time. But as calmer heads prevail, seeing justice for those young ones, seeing that we are not going to allow that behavior to go unchallenged in our neighborhoods, we all have a responsibility to step up. We know who we are doing these particular type of dangerous behaviors in our community. I'm asking, will they tell us? We don't want to see anything being reactionary, or we want to be able to use that energy for good justice, not your own justice. So this is a plea to the community, to those who are just as sickened and also upset. Reach out to us. I guarantee you, we will follow up and we will hold those accountable.
My question's for Arnita, if you wouldn't mind coming up.
Yes,
The Office of Violence Prevention just got a lot of money from the state, from the city, and ARPA dollars and whatnot, operating under its biggest budget since it was originated. Do you think the Office of Violence Prevention is actually preventing violence in our city, given that the crime rates are higher than they've ever been?
Absolutely, violence is being prevented. Those are the stories that are not reported. And so I hold the media as responsible as community members who need to step up. The media needs to step up and also report the things that show that violence is prevented by programming for young people and young adults and families that helps to increase protective factors and reduce risk factors. And so that we've been doing for years, and we will continue to do, and we're able to do it at a larger scale, of course, with the ARPA funding that we've received. And just as a point of clarity, the ARPA funding we receive is being spent over a 5-year period. So it's being expended through 2026.
Brett, thank you. Chief, are you bracing for more violence as we head into the summer? And if so, what's being done to prevent or curb those numbers now?
So continue working with our partnerships. In fact, having Director Hallman up here speak about what the Office of Violence Prevention and some of our other partners, whether it's the Department of Human Health and Services, Credible Messengers, working with the Children's Center, anticipating that we're going to need more help. We understand that with the warmer weather that comes, even though we've seen unfortunate steady incidents of violence over the course of these past couple of years, no matter what weather was out there. But we did see an uptick that was, something very disturbing, especially in regards to that these incidents have almost a perplexing angle to it. You call your father to come and help mediate or basically kind of to attenuate a volatile situation, and a gun is used as the resolving factor. I always ask anyone, how can we address that? There's a point where we as a public have to say, yeah, Dad, I want you by, but can you keep the gun home? I just need to have witness here to be able to say, I don't need to be hit anymore, Pop. We have situations where we're using firearms as the resolving factor to conflict. Unacceptable on all levels. But we as to be as a community do not get deadened by these particular acts and say that this is just normal place. This should never be common. And I want us to still, and that's why we're here today, to continue to talk about this ad nauseum, to be able to have that level of urgency that I feel, that we all should have felt. But yes, we're working. Before this week, we're down in our non-fatals last week. It is a roller coaster ride, unfortunately. But I believe in our partnerships. Speaking with, we just had a re-up for the Chief Lipsky. Understanding he sees it from a different side, from the fire department side, for responding to those gunshot wounds, to see the pain and anguish. We have a collective effort from the government side, but also from our community stakeholder side, but most importantly, from our resident side. We need to be able to speak to someone saying, this is a family barbecue. Why are you bringing guns into this particular setting? We have guns in weddings where individuals are getting shot. We have individuals getting shot because of conflict or some type of disagreement 4 or 5 years ago. Social media being used to continue the aggravating of situations. So we're preparing from a standpoint of letting everyone know the problems that we had, and I'm not afraid to say this without any hesitation. We need your help. We need the public to help us out with this. This cannot be just the Milwaukee Police Department begging and waiting for the information to come. What is it going to take for the public to be able to bring that information to us so that we can do our job as effective and as efficiently?
A question for Director Holloman. The chief kind of mentioned some of the norms that you brought up in your opening remark. What have you kind of witnessed in the communities around the city where you recognize that there is kind of an understood amount of violence? Like, can you just kind of expand on that a little bit? Just kind of this, you don't want anyone to get used to or normalize these tragedies.
So the majority of the city of Milwaukee residents don't think this is normal. And they want to live in a safe home, in a safe neighborhood, in a safe community, a safe city. And so I just want to emphasize that most people don't think this is normal, they're not okay with it, and it's a smaller percentage of people committing these violent acts of gun violence in comparison to the larger community. We hear about it so much that it seems like there are so many people, but smaller percentage in comparison to most people. What we are clear about is that once you are experiencing something over and over and over again, or it appears that if there's community violence happening in your neighborhood repeatedly, people may respond in many different ways based on their own experiences, traumas, how their brain works, any of that. And so some people can become desensitized to it. And that's what we don't want to see. But we also need to separate or parcel out being desensitized versus being numb. And being numb can be a traumatic reaction as well. And so either way, we want to make sure that we're raising awareness, that we are helping to create messaging and to support programming that is going to change any community norms around violence of any kind, be it with a firearm or otherwise. So self-directed violence, family violence, any of that. No woman, no child, no person in this city should be concerned about their safety at any point, and particularly not in their own homes. And when we look at some of the violence that we're seeing, interpersonal violence, there are things that are happening in homes. Well, the police department's not standing in people's living room. OVP is not, there's not a program that we funded that was there in that moment to jump in the way. And so it's about making sure that community members have the resources they need. They know that what resources that they can get, access to, but then also that they are a part of, having the conversation and really helping to change these norms. And the reality is that, light will always drive out darkness. And if you turn on the light, the darkness has to go. And that means each community member being a little more light every day in their families, wherever they are, where they see darkness. And this is what it takes. And we can't let that darkness make us lose hope, because there is hope, even in dire situations, even in weekends after over 20 people have been shot, there is hope. And one of the places where we see some of that hope is a target area, 414 Life target area in Old North Milwaukee. That is a target area, primary area of outreach for 414 Life. And there, as far as I'm aware of at this moment, there was not a shooting in that target area. These are seeds of hope. And so we need to continue to support them and uplift them and make sure that community members know how to access them.
Chief, what can you tell us about the moments that led up to the triple shooting that killed a 13-year-old girl?
From what I understand, there's not much to report in regards to that. There was no prior incident going on at that particular residence, which is perplexing, because there is not a exact answer to how could that led up to the 3 being shot, 1 being a young one who lost her life, and along with another young one who was shot. So we're still looking at that. Again, that in the particular area, there has been some prior challenges of shots being fired, weapons being used in an indiscriminate manner. So we don't know if there's an attachment to that. We're looking into that. We do have some persons of interest that we're interviewing, but we're taking this very, very seriously, just as every situation that involves someone being harmed by violence seriously. But we're still looking into a lot of different angles and putting together the real story on that.
It feels like this is a very strong message that you're trying to give to the public, but Many people who are committing these shootings, using gun violence, might not be watching the news. How are you actively getting the message out into to the community where people are using gun violence? And in the cases where it has been successful, why was it successful? What happened that made it successful to curb the violence?
So obviously this is one platform to get the message out, but I've been to a lot of town halls, crime and safety meetings. I was at an event the other day at El Bethel in regards to re-entry, celebrating those who've come back into our society ready to do work for the behalf of the community, using it as a platform to be able to engage those that we have not normally engaged and say, we need your help. You're in the community, please use your own respective connections, urgency, love, to be able to reach out to those who you know had a potential of doing harm or maybe in the process of doing harm. We all have a role in public safety, and being that voice box for the Milwaukee Police Department, I'll go anywhere and talk about this. It's important for us to have these conversations on a daily. I know that the Office of Violence Prevention is doing their side, I'm doing my side in regards to that. We need to all be ambassadors for our community and to be reminders that we all need help in this work. So beyond just the broadcast or the social media, personally being involved, talking in any corner of this city, being a part of those conversations, not being talked about in those conversations, being in those conversations. And just like Director Holloman talked about, we see that there is activity going on out there. I believe in the work that they're doing. I believe in the work of a lot of our partners are doing. I believe in partnership. I understand that 26 years in this job, can't do it alone. The lift is too heavy. And we're seeing this, and please understand that this is not just the city of Milwaukee. We're seeing this from the East Coast to the West Coast, from north to south. Problems in the respective communities where we are having individuals going around with no hope. I'm asked all the time, what do I look like in regards to coming to 2022 as a leader of this agency? I say I look to this 2022 with hope, with optimism, but also with a sense of urgency, focused and being able to say, how can we work together in what we call this public safety effort?
Director Holloman, if I could just follow up quickly on, you're saying you're seeing success in some neighborhoods. Can you speak to specifically the additional dollars from ARPA? And what have you specifically done to either hire more people or create more programs in other neighborhoods that bring success?
Great question. So the successes that we're seeing that I mentioned with 414 Life, it's data driven. So based on where we see the highest number of shootings in the city, Old North Milwaukee historically over the years has had either the highest number of shootings or very close to being the highest. And so that's why it's a target area or primary area for 414 Life, and that includes shooting responses when there is a shooting. That includes proactive outreach to community members, business owners, neighbors in the area. That includes being on the ground and really making connections, but also mediating conflict that the team may already be aware of that's brewing. So that's an important piece of that. A part of the expansion funds that we receive from the city in the $3 million for expansion, again, will be spent over a time period, so through 2026, which will help with expanding the team, so in size, but also we are expanding our efforts into on the south side. So not that we've been active, 414 Life has been active on the south side, but being able to expand those efforts to include a site location on the south side in the particular area of the shooting in the historic Mitchell area where that multiple shooting was this weekend. So that's a key piece of how those funds will be used to expand the team.